Badgers defeated the Cornhuskers 37-21. The game is what I predicted. The Cornhuskers would lose a close game to the Badgers, which it was, and they lost 37-21. It is what I predicted, and I'm still disappointed, mainly because the fact that the Cornhuskers, they had a good start for this game. They moved the football, they scored first, had the lead 7-zip, except then the Badgers were able to respond, move the football, scored, they ended up tying the game at 7-7, ended up getting the game tied at 7, and then in the second quarter, the Badgers offense had an onslaught because they scored 20 points, and that was too much for the Cornhuskers to overcome because they weren't able to score more than 7 points for 3 of the 4 quarters that they did score. All they did is score 7 points, and 7 points, if I recall right, for the fourth quarter. And that's just too much for if a team can't score. If one team scores double digits and the other team scores single digits for all other times of the game, then that other team that can only score single digits for 3 or 4 quarters is no doubt is going to lose pretty much every time, mainly because the team that scores double digits, that's just too much of an advantage to overcome. When this team scored double digits for 1 quarter and is still scoring for all 4 quarters, while this other team only scores single digits for 3 of the 4 quarters. So it was highly disappointing that the Cornhuskers weren't able to get the game tied and they weren't able to take the lead again after that offensive onslaught, 20 points scored by the Badgers in the second quarter. And Jonathan Taylor, the great Badgers, talented, great Badgers running back, he had a great game because he ran for more than 190 yards and 2 touchdowns. And it's really hard to beat a great team if one of their best players runs for more than 195 yards and 2 touchdowns, which he did. And it was also really highly frustrating the Cornhuskers. They weren't able to score double digits for all 4 quarters. For the 3 of the 4 quarters, all they did is score 7, 7, and 7. They weren't able to score anything above 7, so that was highly disappointing. And it was also highly disappointing that they were able to play effective enough that they kept the Badgers to single digits for the first quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, except they weren't able to do that for the second quarter. So that was also highly disappointing, and so with that loss, that drops the Cornhuskers to 4-6, and it's going to be a high wall to climb for the second year for Scott Frost in the second year for the Cornhuskers to avoid a second consecutive losing season, since they would have to win their final 2 games of the regular season to avoid a second consecutive losing season, and one of those games is against a pretty good Iowa Hawkeyes team that did defeat a Golden Gophers undefeated team, giving them their first loss, which was a game in Iowa, exciting game in Iowa. So it's going to be really interesting for the Big Red Cornhuskers to see if they can avoid a second consecutive losing season in the second year Scott Frost era. Tennessee Volunteers ended up defeating the Kentucky Wildcats in a close game, 17-13, and the game is what I predicted. I predicted the Volunteers would win 31-27 in a close game, and even though I didn't get the score right, I still got the winner right, and by the amount still being right because they still ended up winning by 4 points. Ended up defeating the Wildcats 17-13. Darren Tano, he played great for the game because he completed 7 of his 8 passes, so that was most of his passes, 1 short of perfect. That's why I say he played a great game. And he was effective with passing the football of those 7 of 8 passes that he completed. And Volunteers ended up scoring 2 touchdowns and a field goal. And they had not a good start, except they were still able to rebound, play better, and end up taking the lead. And their defense, the Volunteers' defense, had to defend late because the Wildcats, they kept moving the football. Got in the red zone, they got it past the 20-yard line, and the Volunteers' defense, they needed 4 consecutive stops, and that's exactly what they got. So I was really happy that the Volunteers' defense was able to defend when needed, and they ended up getting 4 consecutive stops. And also really happy that they ended up evening they evened their record up to 5-5, and now they're just one win away from becoming bowl eligible, which is really impressive after a 1-4 start where it looked really bleak, and it looked like they were just going to be a 1-11 or 2-10 team that's just going to have a miserable season. So Pruitt has been effective as far as getting the season turned around for the Bright Orange Volunteers, and it's going to be really interesting now to see if the Volunteers, for their final two games, they got a game that I expect to be. I don't expect them to be an easy win in Missouri. I still expect them to win that game against Missouri Tigers, and they also have a coin flip game against a playing better Vanderbilt team in Rocky Top. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see if the Volunteers can win their final two games and finish the regular season with a winning record. Considering after the fact that they started 1-4 and have been playing great after that 1-4 start. And so it's going to be a really interesting final two games, both for the Big Red Cornhuskers and the Bright Orange Volunteers.